Today's episode is brought to you by Career Spa. Whether shifting roles within your current organization or venturing into new opportunities, start your transformation today at www.careerspa.net.
We had to make a change, and we needed to make a change quickly. I went toe-to-toe with that CEO. Could have lost my job going to toe-to-toe with that CEO. But you've got to be passionate, and you've got to have confidence that if you're going to move mountains, if you're going to make meaningful change, you have to be a disruptor at times, Carlton, and you have to challenge the status quo. I could have sat in that room and I could have relented and been like, you know what? It is what it is. We'll keep pace with what we're paying because we can't afford to make this investment in our people. No, the true answer was we couldn't afford not to make the investment in our people. And it was my responsibility to push and to push hard on that. And guess what? We got it.
Welcome to Singing Your Own Song, where purpose and passion meet under life's spotlight. In each captivating episode, we'll highlight the unique career journey of a special guest, where boundaries are pushed, dreams are realized, and purpose takes center stage. Get ready to be inspired, enlightened, and motivated as we uncover stories of those who have not only found their calling, but are living it every day. And now, your host, Carlton Burrows.
Well, hello to the listening and viewing audience. I am super excited today. I have a really good friend, a colleague, someone I've known for over 20 years, and I'm going to do a little bit of decoding as we go through this. When we say we've done X, Y, Z or known each other for over 20 years, that's saying, hey, I'm not going to tell you how old I am. I'm not going to tell you how long I've been doing this. Just know I've been doing it for a long time. It's one of those little things like when you went to the store, your mom said, go to the store to pick something up. You went to the store, you hung out with your friends, you're playing ball, and she calls and says, are you at the store? And you're like, yeah, I went to the store. It's true, but it's just, we're going to use that as kind of the foundational truth. So I want to introduce to the podcast today, John Petrov. I can say that I met John, and I think we met when we both were in the formative stages of our career. We were both what used to be called headhunters. Yep. Right? We were those guys that would call you at 8, 9 o'clock at night, asking if you're happy with your job. And and we had some fun experiences together that we'll get into. John is currently the Chief Human Resources Officer for UAB Health Systems, in Birmingham, Alabama. And I'm really proud of the things that John's been able to accomplish. I think over the last 10, 15 years, John, you've been at a senior level in human resources, SVP, Chief Human Resource Officer, and you've done that specifically in the healthcare space.
Yes.
Prior to that, I know you cut your teeth in recruiting, which is, that cut close to home because I was a recruiter as well. I know anyone who's been in the recruiting world knows that it takes a special type of personality profile to be a recruiter. You got to be confident, borderline cocky a little bit every now and then, but you also have to be able to connect with people. You have to have that empathy. You have to have what some would call the ability to see into people, because you got to be able to build a relationship where people can really get comfortable telling you about their dreams and goals and career. Prior to that, like I said, you really had a storied career, and I don't want to take the light from you. I'd rather let you tell a little bit about your story and what you're doing and what you've been doing, and then we'll kind of move into a conversation. Yep. That being said, I'd love to kind of bring John Petrov to the microphone and let him tell us a little bit about his journey. John.
Well, thank you, Carlton. And, you and I have been friends for over 2 decades. And I've got to say, while we may have been early in our career, we were the best of the best. You and I were nationally ranked top performing recruiters, then Volt Services Group, remember?
I do.
For Hewlett Packard.
Yes.
And then you remember a short time thereafter, we spent a little over a year and a half together. I went up to New York City. I do. And I began my dream to be a headhunter in the Big Apple, where I'm originally from. Yeah. I've been all over the place, moved through the country, from New York to New Jersey to Texas, Texas to Florida, Florida back to Texas. Texas to West Virginia, West Virginia to Maryland. Oh my gosh, Maryland to Kentucky, Kentucky to back to New York, Carlton.
Wow.
brief stint in Richmond, and now I've landed in Birmingham, Alabama. Imagine that, right?
Now, John, I gotta say, I've known you for a while, man. And when you told me that you were moving to Birmingham, Alabama, I was shocked. I mean, New York, I got it, right? And I know
Yep,
when we initially met, and you didn't really didn't expound upon this, but when you initially met, I was transitioning from a company with GE Capital that
that's
acquired the
right.
company I'd been with, and I was again kind of a year right at a year in my recruiting career, and you were getting ready to leave the country for a while, if I'm not
Yep,
mistaken, and recruited me to kind of take the
that's right.
reins while you left the country. So you've actually had some international experience in travel as well.
Yep. Going overseas to Bulgaria when my
Oh wow.
grandfather had passed, and to spend time with my grandmother, which was, by the way, the first time I had the chance to meet her. And long story short, my father immigrated from Bulgaria to the United States back when Bulgaria was communist,
Wow.
Carlton. And
Wow.
he escaped by foot vis-a-vis Austria to Italy, Italy to Canada, Canada to New York City, where he met my mother, and eventually they had me. That's right, Carlton.
Wow, wow, wow. And I remember bits and pieces of that, but it's amazing to hear you share it now, because I mean I think a lot of times, and I'll share this. I know you and I talked a little bit before we started this, and the whole purpose behind the podcast of singing your own song is to really show the journey, right? To show how people who are singing their own songs, how they went from kind of where they started, meandered, like you said, you moved a lot
Yeah.
to where you are today. And I think sometimes what we in this culture, I have a 16-year-old man, and we live in the land of Instagram reels, TikTok
TikTok.
videos. Yeah, I mean, it's always like a highlight reel where you just see people, balling out, and you think, man, okay, I want that life. But what we don't see is the journey, right? And I think, a genre that does a really good job of that is superhero movies, right? Because
Yes.
you can see Batman and say, oh, look at this rich guy with all these gadgets and the Batmobile and super capes and strength. But what you get the chance to see when we watch the show and watch the journey is his family history. His parents fed into who he became.
Right.
His getting over his demons and his fears, right? Really having to battle some things really were part of who he is. And he's a flawed human being who actually was able to get stronger and better
That's
going
right.
through those things that he went through. So,
Yeah.
and I think part of what I love to do, man, is kind of begin our journey with, you kind of told a little bit about your history and your background. Maybe share a little bit about a turning point. What was that awakening, that brick wall where you really felt yourself shift into your path and into
Yeah.
your song, right? And what
So,
was that?
so if you remember, well, I came back from Bulgaria and came back to Volt and spent some time with you and the team.
Yep.
Good old days, you, me, Cheryl, the whole crew, remember?
Ron, yeah.
And I moved into the employee relations role for a little bit there. And then I
Yes.
ended up going to work in New York City and doing more big time financial services
Yeah.
recruitment for the banks and IT recruitment and all that fun stuff. And I met my life partner in New York City in the club. And I happen to be gay, you know that, and you've always accepted me and embraced me for my authentic self. And that is something that I will always appreciate, Carlton, about our friendship. Well, Richie's really been my rock, if you will. And we've been together now over 27 years. And a turning point for me was when we were actually in Texas.
Okay.
And I was expressing interest in an opportunity to be a first-time CHRO at an independent hospital
Okay.
system in West Virginia, and the job required a master's degree.
Okay.
And I had just begun my journey to go to school to get my master's.
Okay.
And I was having a brief conversation at home, and I kind of said, Richie, I'm going to not move forward with this because I don't have the degree, and it's a requirement for the job. And you and I, as recruiters, we know sometimes requirements are hard and fast, and sometimes there may be flexibility when you have the right person, right? Or the right fit. And he pushed me and he said, John, you're going to school. What do you have to lose to apply to the job and go for it? So fast forward, I went for it and I got it before I had my master's degree. And I finished my master's degree while I was there. And it just opened up a door for me that I probably would not have taken that leap forward if I hadn't had Richie to push me forward and to support me and say, you've got this, you can do this. And by all means, I teach part-time. I've been teaching part-time as an adjunct faculty for HR for over 10 years, Carlton. And I know the importance of education, but I also know that experience is numero uno. Education is a complement thereof. And when you have the two combined forces, you're unstoppable.
Yeah, yeah. You know, and I will tell you this, man. And I don't know if I've shared this with you before, but you mentioned the impact that Richie had on you. And you know, yes, we've talked about a number of different things, you know, when we were at HP together. One of the things I remember about coming on board and working with you, you interviewed me.
Yep.
And that was probably the first time in my career where I had an interview and I felt like I bombed it, man. I mean, you asked me,
You knocked it, and you know me. I only hire the best. You too, Carlton, right? So it's not
Oh,
an
my
easy
goodness.
interview.
I was like, he asked me, what's the FMLA? What's ADA? I don't know if you remember this.
I do.
And I was like, because I was, again, a headhunter recruiter. I wasn't on the full HR path yet. But what that did for me is that reminded me sometimes you have to be humble and you have to realize what you don't know.
That's
and,
right.
and just to your story, you know, it was a point in your career where you didn't have something. And rather than just accepting I don't have it, you say, okay, what does it take to move forward? Right.
And you learn, right?
Yeah,
because
yeah,
you and
yeah.
I both know through life, it's do you have the capacity and the wherewithal to learn, to grow?
Yeah.
What you don't know, somebody else does, or there's a book, or there's a website. There is always an answer out there. You just have to be creative and resourceful to get to the right answer. And nothing wrong with telling somebody, hey, look, let me look into that and get back to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, would you say that was the hardest part of that? Or what was the part that really created that growth in you from your perspective that actually helped you go from where you were to really being
I
on
think
the path?
I think a lot of my trajectory, and look, I was first time CHRO at 34. So if you go back those years, most CHROs were, I would say on average in their late 50s or older, right? Times have changed now, that a lot of people have retired and whatnot. But the fact that Richie and I were flexible to relocate as many times as we did throughout my career opened up doors that for me, had I stayed at any given organization, it would have probably taken 10 to 15 years to get to where I'm at today. And I'm 48 years young. And you know, I'm very blessed. I'm the head of HR for a 37,000 person, 14 plus hospital, $7 billion organization, and a best in class organization. You know, our reputation precedes us. We provide world class care, and I'm very proud of that. But it's because of the collective experiences that I have had and the opportunities along the way throughout the years that has placed me in a position where I have the experience and the wherewithal to do this type of job and this work. Granted, not on my own, because I don't have the answer to everything. It's the collective effort of the team and the organizations that we serve, Carlton. And I mean, you know, you went out there and you did a stint. You were a recruiter, you did many things, then you became an expert in the compensation field, right?
Yeah.
So you shifted gears too, and you mastered that next aspect of your journey. And then you went into the music industry and you've recorded and now you're an entrepreneur and a CEO of your own company and you're interviewing other people. You know, life is a journey. And I think what matters most is we have to seize each and every opportunity, good, bad, and in between, because they help to mold and shape who we are and how we can respond to the challenges and opportunities that we face.
Absolutely, man. And you know, so thank you for sharing that. And thank you for the accolades you threw at me as well. I appreciate that, man. We like I said, we've seen each other through some journeys. And I know one of the things that happens, especially you said you were a chief HR officer at, you know, your mid-30s. I remember at Hewlett Packard, because when you left, I stayed at HP. They offered me a job to bring me in-house. And through a little bit of meandering as well, I was able to, you know, become head of compensation for about a 20,000 person organization, like you said.
That's right.
And I will tell you, I mean, I went in kicking and screaming, man. My mentor and sponsor, I just got my MBA, and she was like, this is where I can see you growing. And I was like, no, I don't want to do compensation. I mean, I said no like 3 times, man.
Yep.
And she was like, look, do it. Just give it a year. If you don't like it, fine. And I will say that was probably one of the biggest growth periods of my career. But I will say there's something that you touched on it called the imposter syndrome, where you almost feel like, oh, am I ready for this? I mean, it's
Right.
almost overwhelming.
Surreal.
How did you manage through that for people who may be hitting that space in their career? What was it that helped you get through? Because I've always seen you as a super confident guy, right? So I'd love to hear from you behind the curtain, how you were able to walk through that.
You know, I've been blessed, Carlton, because you are one of several good friends of mine that, you know, you have a great deal of experience and expertise and perspective. And I've called on you throughout the years for advice and counsel. And you've done the same with me, right? We've had a mutually trusting and respectful and supportive professional relationship, right? I have developed a lot of relationships with folks across the country and a myriad of expertise and backgrounds and whatnot. And you know, people have helped me get through whatever challenge or opportunity that I've been faced with. Sharing, you know, their story, what worked, what didn't work, so that perhaps maybe I don't make the same mistakes, or if and when I make a mistake, which I've made mistakes, right? There are opportunities to learn and to not necessarily repeat, and then to share and pass that on to others. It's like wisdom, right? We acquire wisdom. It takes time and experience. I don't think we come out the gate being born the wisest person on earth, right? I don't know that anybody will ever be that, but we do get these little golden nuggets along the way, and we just have to share those experiences and perspectives. And just having a strong support system, you know, by all means, I love my mom. I still love them, but they both passed. You know, my mom and my dad were always very supportive of me, and pretty much the two people I would turn to first and foremost when I had to make some decisions with making a career change or negotiating a package and things of that nature. So it's surrounding yourself with positive people, people that are going to add value to the relationship and to the life journey that you have. And then what's most important is not to take advantage of those relationships, Carlton, but to reciprocate and to give back whenever and however possible.
Yeah, like paying it forward, right? Making sure that
That's right. Pay it forward.
Yeah. So now you mentioned having good mentors and having good people pouring into you. Maybe touch on a mentor, whether it's known or unknown, living or not, that you know they might not even know that they're this person for you, and how they really impacted you in that journey.
You know, there's a saying from Ronald Kroc, the founder of McDonald's. And you think about McDonald's, how many people within our country, that's the first place that they've had a career. And just an amazing global business model that has grown, right? Billions and billions of people served around the country.
Exactly.
And a little saying that he has is persistence and determination are omnipotent or omnipotent, however you pronounce it. And I have held true to that in all of my endeavors in life. I'm very persistent and I'm very determined. I have been called ambitious, and sometimes there's can be a negative connotation to these things. And I want to give you one life experience.
Yeah.
A number of years back, I was interviewing with the senior managing partner with Korn Ferry for a CHRO job at a much larger organization than I had ever been at before. Didn't move forward in the process, but he had made a comment to me and he had said, John, you know, you're scrappy. And my first inclination initially, I thought about scrappy and I thought about, you know, the textbook or the dictionary definition of that being disorganized and whatnot, and argumentative and so on and so forth. And I'm like, why is this dude calling me scrappy? I'm anything but scrappy. I may not have an Ivy League degree or things of that nature, but like yourself, we have both worked for Fortune 500 companies. We work for not-for-profit, for-profit, things of that nature. And then I realized that scrappy can also mean determined. It can mean resilient, right? It could mean you will always stand for and do the right thing, even when doing that is extremely difficult, or you may risk everything to do the right thing. And I've done that. And I'll give you a real life example. One of the health systems that I've worked at in the past decade, there was a CEO who was extremely challenging. And I was advocating to get pay raises for our workers. We were impacted by COVID. We had high turnover. There were a lot of challenges. We were paying our people $12.50 an hour. on the front line, providing housekeeping, food services, hard work, very hard work, right? A front line to our patients, but yet Walmart, McDonald's, you name it, Dunkin' Donuts, they started paying their people $15, $16, $17, $18 an hour. We had to make a change, and we needed to make a change quickly. I went toe to toe with that CEO. Could have lost my job going to toe with that CEO. And I asked that CEO the question in front of the executive team, when's the last time you made $12.50 an hour? And boy, did I hit a nerve.
Yeah.
But you've got to be passionate, and you've got to have confidence that if you're going to move mountains, if you're going to make meaningful change, you have to be a disruptor at times, Carlton, and you have to challenge the status quo. I could have sat in that room and I could have relented and been like, you know what? It is what it is. We'll keep pace with what we're paying because we can't afford to make this investment in our people. No, the true answer was we couldn't afford not to make the investment in our people. And it was my responsibility to push and to push hard on that. And guess what?
Absolutely.
We got it.
I love it, man. I love it. You know, you mentioned something earlier, and I want to honor it, right? Because you mentioned you're a gay male in the corporate world, and I think a lot of times when we go through our corporate journey, and we're not kind of part of what I would call the status quo, whether you're a person of color, female, someone of a different sexual orientation, sometimes you hit walls that it's hard for you to reconcile, right? It's hard for you to reckon with. Has that ever happened to you? And if so, how were you able to go through it or deal with it?
Yeah. Situation, another job. There was a time that I went forward with an ask and similar situation, pushing forward a request that I really believed in. I believe that I was championing a positive cause for our people, or the people with which I represented, right? They were my constituency. And the answer was no. And I went back a few times and the answer continued to be no. That can be disheartening, right? I don't like no, to be honest with you. My definition of no means not now, eventually yes. So going back to that persistence and determination philosophy, I kept at it. And I had to adjust my approach eventually to get my target audience who had the power and were the decision makers to get to yes. And eventually when I got to yes, and this is more of a confidential situation, so I can't go into deep conversation about it. It wasn't exactly the yes that I initially went to get and shot for. It was an adjustment, but nonetheless, it moved the organization forward, and they were better off for that new decision than they were without it, albeit the decision was somewhat amended.
Yeah. And I think you touched on it when you talked. I think sometimes we see things from our perspective, right? I think when, you have diversity as part of your life, right? Not just part of your job or your mandate, you have to see through different lenses, right? I have to have a certain amount of empathy and ability to step out of me and see things from your perspective, just because that's a survival mechanism for me.
Yeah.
I think when I was at Hewlett Packard, I headed up the Diversity Advisory Council, was president of Black Employees Forum, and I know you've done similar things. Where do you see, and again, this is a little bit of a divergence from the initial conversation, but I love it. Where do you see that real value really hitting, especially in the healthcare side, from a diversity perspective? I see that you've been a diversity champion in healthcare.
Absolutely. And an ally. And look, I'm a white male. I've grown up with privilege. I've had access to opportunities and things that perhaps my counterparts, person of color or female or a female person of color, right, may not have had the same access or opportunity. I have to be an ally. I have to be a champion. The world that we live in is increasingly diverse, and the patients that we serve are diverse. I have a biracial nephew. And in life, we have to be able to support and uplift all people, because it takes all people in order to support our system, to support, the work that we do. And from a diversity, equity, inclusion perspective, Carlton, it's important. My perspective has been this. This has been my mantra. I'm not different from you. I'm different like you. We all have our God-given gifts and talents, and we have things that may be similar that we have in common, and then we have things that are unique to each of us as unique human beings. And I believe it's our responsibility, and especially when you get to that leadership level, that you lift up people and you help people from all different backgrounds to perform at their full potential. And that means providing them with the tools and resources that they need, providing them with the coaching and the development and the support. And it manifests itself into just a positive, harmonious chain of events where people continue to help people. And that's what I'm about.
Man, I love that, John. I mean, I wish this is one of those weird things where I wish I could take like you as a mold and, and just pour in, and we could just deploy leaders all over the place. I mean, I think your unique experiences, man, allowed you to sing your song. So on that note, so let's go there. Let's have a little fun, right? So if your journey, your life's work, your purpose, your journey was a song, and it doesn't have to be a real song, it doesn't have to be Purple Rain or something.
I got a real one.
Okay, all right. Well, I'll let you take it, man.
I do like Purple Rain, but it's not Purple Rain.
Okay. So what would be your song, the title, the genre? Would it be uptemp, timeless, trendy? How would you describe your song?
It's two songs actually, ballad, and then I would say, in the modern pop up tempo realm, I love Sia. She's a great artist and musician. Okay. So I think my life journey has really been unstoppable. I love that song. I think it speaks to my heart. It speaks to my character, who I am. It's showcasing strength and confidence, but also having emotional armor for those difficult times when we're all vulnerable or susceptible to some type of experience that challenges us in life, but also helps us to learn and grow. And it just conveys such a strong message of inner strength and resilience. And I'm a persistent and determined human being. And I think in my latter years, because you're right, I have worked hard to become an advocate and to be an advocate and voice for those that may not have a voice or that are underserved, underprivileged. And in the past several years, it has really been a focus of mine on the LGBTQ plus community, given that I'm a gay male. And so I elevate to The Greatest. I don't know if you know that song by Sia. And she wrote that song in response to the atrocity and what had transpired at the Pulse nightclub in Orlando back in 2016. We had over 50 lives lost that evening, and I think 50 plus injured. And what The Greatest tells you is that you can be great regardless of sexual orientation, gender, sex, religion, whatever the case may be. And that's why, I think that our nation's diversity really should be our strength. One's own experiences and perspectives needs to be your strength. And we all have a story to tell, and we have a story that we have to live out. We have to explore. We have to also feed and nurture and develop. And don't have any regrets. Don't hold back. Don't keep anything back. Live your life to your fullest potential.
Wow. That's amazing, man. That's powerful. I love that. And you mentioned the Pulse nightclub incident. I actually remember where I was. I remember having TV on in the background, and it, certain things just jump out at you. That jumped out at me. And I remember how it felt in my chest, right? Similar with George Floyd, another one of those things.
Breonna Taylor, all of that.
Oh my goodness, man. Yeah. So it's just, I think we as a country are healing, and we're growing, and we're evolving, right? One of the things also that, you touched about is you had a different song for when you were younger and now, right? What would you say to your younger self, or to someone who's kind of traveling the journey, right, that your younger self traveled? What would be that advice that would be maybe something that they wouldn't find by Googling or wouldn't find by looking in a career magazine, right, to help them sing their song?
I know this is probably, lots of people say this, but I mean it in the truest sense. Be authentic. Come correct with your true self. Be you for all that you are. Make it happen, make mistakes, have wins, have losses. Make it a journey that you will be inspired by and proud of. There's that old adage, do something that you love to do, right? You and I have been successful, I think, in large part to the fact that we have fully embraced and loved the work that we have done. And our work has been diversified over the years. It's not as if we've done the same thing, and not to say that anything is wrong with somebody doing the same thing for 20 or 30 years. Whatever works for you, just make it happen, embrace it, and live it. Day by day, month by month, year by year, enjoy who you are to your full potential.
Man, I love that. I love it. And you asked me something when we were off camera. You said I like the mic, right? And I said
Yes.
I'll share that. And not to get too sassy.
It's fancy.
Yeah, well, thank you. It's funny because a lot of the podcast mics now, I looked and I said, I don't want to give that, but then I realized part of who I am, right? And part of the title for Singing Your Own Song is a lot of who my being is music, right?
That's right.
And I remember during a point where I was doing a lot of recording, I had a really good friend, and unfortunately he's passed away recently, but a really good friend who's probably one of the best producers and songwriters I know. I mean, he's done some songs for, people that are out there. And he would call me at 2, 3 in the morning, man. He would call me at like 10 o'clock at night. I'd get over in the studio at 2, 3 in the morning, and we would record all night because he'd have a deadline. He'd have to get something done by the next day. And I remember he helped me build my own little home. I called it a vocal studio, right?
Yeah.
And this mic, he helped me pick it out. It's a baby bottle, right? A Bluebird baby bottle. At the time, it was like, state of the art, like an $800 mic, and it was,
Yeah.
And I remember some of the advice he would give me. He said, when you're singing into the mic, he said, and I'll make it easy for the podcast. He's like, make love to the mic. He said, you need to really let the person who's listening feel your energy, feel your emotion, feel your passion. And I think this mic, although he's no longer with us, this mic reminds me that I've had people in my life who've poured into me in different ways.
That's right.
And now it's coming full circle, right? I'm doing a podcast that is allowing people like you and others to really share how they're singing their song and really touch. I see the sky as being the limit for how many people we can touch through this. And this is a portion of it. So this is kind of infusing and kind of lacing together different pieces of, kind of who we are, right? And making that full person and that full package. So,
Carlton, one of the things when we think about the impact and advice to a younger self and just a younger audience out there, I think it's important in life. Like you and I, we're friends. We've known each other for 2 decades. But you think you know a person, but you don't always really know a person unless they share their full self and story, meaning that we worked together, we were professionals, we knew our passion from a work perspective. I know your wife, and life and things evolve. But like I learned about your passion of music later on in our relationship in your life, right? So you can never say you really know a person. You have to continue to nurture the relationships that we have, both new and old, so that we can continue to learn from one another and learn about each other. I think that's an important point to make. The other point that I want to make in closing from my perspective is my goal in life is to make a meaningful difference in the lives of others, right? And to bring out the best in people. And that's really what I work hard to do, whether it's a family member, a personal friend, a neighbor, or people that I have the responsibility to care for and nurture in the workplace.
Wow. Well, man, thank you for this. This has been amazing. I know you have big power meetings to go to, and I really appreciate you carving out this time for us today, man. I am super excited, and I can't wait for this to get out into the airwaves and touch people, man. So be blessed, John. Love you, man.
You too, my friend.
And
Love you, my friend.
Yeah, let's stay connected, man. All right?
You take care.
All right.
Thank you for tuning in to this installment of Singing Your Own Song. We hope you enjoyed today's adventure and that it uncovered valuable insights on living a purpose-driven life. Don't forget to subscribe, follow us, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. Your feedback fuels our mission to bring you more compelling stories and lessons from individuals who are singing their own song and redefining success on their own terms. We invite you to connect to Carlton Burroughs on social media and visit us at singingyourown.song.com to stay updated on upcoming episodes, behind-the-scenes content, and to join our vibrant community of purpose-driven individuals.